It's March 8, 2014. A Malaysian Airlines Boeing 777 is gearing up for its journey, a 5.5-hour flight to Beijing, China. At 12:40 a.m., the massive jet powers down the runway at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, lifting into the night sky. But what started as a routine flight would soon become the most perplexing mystery in aviation history. Buckle up, because this is where the story of MH370 begins. The aircraft ascends to 35,000 feet and receives clearance to head to Igari, marking the transition from Malaysian airspace to the South China Sea. Everything appears normal until 1:15 a.m., 45 minutes after departure, as the plane approaches Igari. At this point, the pilots are instructed to communicate with Vietnam's air traffic control. The flight crew was expected to establish communication with Vietnam air traffic control within a minute of being handed over. As the plane crossed Igari, it began turning right toward its next waypoint, BOD. However, MH370 never contacted Vietnamese authorities. Just 2 minutes after initiating this turn, the aircraft vanished from radar. A modern commercial airliner carrying 239 passengers and crew had suddenly disappeared. On board every aircraft is a transponder, a device responsible for broadcasting key information such as the plane's identification, position, and speed to air traffic controllers. Air traffic control, ATC, uses a plane's transponder data to track its location, known as secondary radar. If a plane disappears from radar, it means the transponder stopped working. When MH370 vanished, Malaysian ATC had transferred control to Vietnam, leaving the flight unmonitored at that critical time. At the time, Vietnam wasn't actively tracking the plane since it hadn't yet reported in to their air traffic control. At that moment, the aircraft was essentially in a void, an unmonitored stretch of airspace. For 18 crucial minutes, no one realizes a plane has vanished. It's only when Vietnam notices the absence of a scheduled check-in that questions arise. Vietnamese authorities contact Malaysia, asking why the flight hasn't appeared on their radar. This is the moment Malaysia learns the plane is missing. A multinational search operation is quickly organized, focusing on the plane's last known location in the South China Sea. Every passing moment is critical. Finding the aircraft swiftly is the only hope of rescuing those on board. Yet despite their urgent efforts, the search yields nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no survivors, just an unsettling void. A startling revelation came to light after MH370 vanished from civilian radar. The Malaysian military picked up the plane on their systems. They tracked it making a sharp turn, flying back across Malaysia and heading northwest over the Straits of Malacca. The signal was eventually lost just north of Sumatra. This shocking discovery confirmed that the plane hadn't crashed immediately after disappearing. It had continued flying for some time. Yet, the Malaysian military withheld this critical information from the public for an astonishing 5 days. Let's dive back into the mystery and try to uncover what really happened to the missing plane. Initially, the U-turn made by MH370 seemed to suggest a plane in distress, with the pilots trying to return to a nearby airport. On board, the aircraft was carrying a container of lithium-ion batteries, well known for their potential to overheat and catch fire if damaged. Such a fire could have potentially knocked out the plane's transponder. The theory unravels when considering MH370's actions after the fire. Instead of attempting to land, it continued beyond military radar range. Nearby countries, including India and Indonesia, failed to cooperate or share data. India claimed radar deactivation, while Indonesia cited fuel shortages. Consequently, the search focused on the vast Indian Ocean, Straits of Malacca, and Bay of Bengal. In 2005, shortly after its departure, Helios Flight 522 lost contact with air traffic control. After 2 hours of silence, the plane crashed near Grammatico, Greece, marking it as the deadliest aviation disaster in Greek history. Investigators determined that the aircraft's pressurization system had been set to manual, causing it to depressurize slowly during its climb. The result was hypoxia, leaving all passengers and crew dead. Could MH370's fate be similar? Even if the pilots were incapacitated, the autopilot would have followed the planned route to Beijing via BOD. However, the autopilot wouldn't account for the sudden U-turn. A closer look at the flight path over the Malay Peninsula reveals consistent, minor course adjustments during the journey. The autopilot usually maintains a fixed heading, but MH370's flight path deviated. Investigators found 2 key clues. First, nearby aircraft, an Emirates A340 from Kuala Lumpur to Dubai and another from Chennai, were tracked. MH370 appeared to maneuver 15 nautical miles right to avoid collision with these planes. The second clue emerged when investigators tried to replicate the aircraft's turn in a flight simulator. They found that the autopilot couldn't reproduce the sharp increase in the turn's bank angle from 25 degrees to 38 degrees, suggesting something unusual was at play. Just to the north of Igari lies the Thai Air Defense Zone. If an aircraft were to enter this area without authorization, it would trigger an immediate response from the Thai military. A 25-degree turn would bring the plane into the Thai zone, but a 38-degree turn would keep it safely outside. This suggests a deliberate maneuver. All these signs, such as the sharp turns, the sudden disappearance from radar, and the intentional avoidance of other aircraft, pointed toward the possibility that someone was still in control of the plane when it vanished. Investigators began to consider a chilling theory. Could this have been a hijacking? The evidence seemed to suggest that it wasn't an accident, but rather a carefully planned and executed event. The area around Igari, where the plane vanished, is unique. While I mentioned it's under Malaysian control, that's not fully accurate. Igari marks Malaysia's airspace boundary, with Vietnam's to the east. This region falls under Singapore's jurisdiction, but to streamline communication, Singapore recently delegated control to Malaysia, preventing pilots from contacting 3 air traffic controllers. Although the airspace technically belonged to Singapore, Malaysia managed it. Due to a recent change, Malaysian controllers still followed old protocols, handing over control to Vietnam once the plane entered their territory. This created a no man's land at Igari, making it an ideal spot for a hijacking. More than 5 days have passed since the plane vanished, and hope of finding survivors is fading. The search area is vast, like finding a needle in a haystack. Though the plane's black boxes have locator beacons, their signals last only 30 days, making every moment crucial for the search teams. A lead emerges from an unexpected source. On March 8th, as MH370's crew conducts pre-flight checks, the plane's satellite data unit sends a log-on request to Inmarsat's communication satellite. This small but crucial detail later becomes the foundation of a groundbreaking investigation. At the time MH370 vanished from radar, its connection to the communication satellite was severed. Then, at 2:25 a.m., almost an hour after disappearing, a new log-on request was sent to the satellite, as if the Satellite Data Unit, SDU, had restarted and was trying to reconnect to the network. Intrigued by this anomaly, engineers at Inmarsat delved deeper into the data. What they discovered were hourly heartbeat signals, brief transmissions that hinted at a continued, albeit limited, connection between the plane and the satellite. These signals would soon play a pivotal role in piecing together the mystery of MH370's fate. For 6 hours, the plane sent intermittent signals providing faint clues. Engineers measured the time it took for these heartbeat signals to reach the satellite, estimating the plane's distance at various points. The plane sent 7 signals, allowing investigators to draw 7 possible locations where it could have been. Using the plane's last position, fuel, speed, and signal frequency, engineers formed possible flight paths. The 7th and final arc pointed deep into the Indian Ocean, where no further heartbeat signals were detected. This revealed a critical truth. Search teams had been looking in the wrong area. The Malaysian government then shifted the search efforts to the southern Indian Ocean. Since this area fell under Australian control, Australia took charge of the search, which would soon become the largest and most expensive aviation search operation in history. The search begins along the 7th arc, a 700-mile stretch of ocean, where the plane could be within 140 miles on either side. This remote area, far from shipping routes, posed significant challenges. It took Australian teams 2 days to reach it, and storms had passed, making it harder to spot crucial surface debris. The search for a missing plane often starts with its last known location, but even that isn't foolproof. Before MH370, the largest aviation search was for Air France Flight 447, which disappeared over the Atlantic after encountering severe thunderstorms. A massive effort followed to uncover its fate. Air France Flight 447 had a known flight path, final location, and surface debris, yet took 2 years, 4 expeditions, and $40 million to locate. In contrast, MH370 has no confirmed flight path, final location, or initial debris, making its search far more challenging. In the remote waters of the southern Indian Ocean, investigators tirelessly search for surface debris. For 2 weeks, aided by satellite imagery, their efforts yielded no results. As time slips away, the situation grows even more critical. Within a month, the locator beacons on the plane's black boxes are expected to fall silent, further complicating the search. Amid the ongoing mystery, a glimmer of hope emerges. Australia operates an extensive network of underwater microphones known as hydrophones, designed to monitor earthquakes and marine wildlife. Around the time MH370 is believed to have struck the ocean, these hydrophones detected an unusual sound. However, the technology lacks the ability to pinpoint the direction of the noise. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, CTBTO, uses a precise hydrophone network near Perth, Australia, to monitor for nuclear tests. This system detected the same noise as Australia's hydrophones with remarkable accuracy, identifying sound direction within half a degree and calculating its distance precisely. But when scientists analyzed the data, they discovered the sound originated far northwest of the location predicted by Inmarsat satellite data. This discrepancy led to the noise being dismissed as a possible lead, with some suspecting it may have been caused by an underwater tremor. In 2016, 2 years after MH370 vanished, pieces of the aircraft began appearing on Reunion Island and along Africa's eastern shores. Investigators identified these fragments as belonging to the missing flight through matching serial numbers. Ocean drift analysis supported the suspected crash zone, yet the main wreckage was still nowhere to be found. To locate it, we need to uncover the reasons behind this event. In the complex web of theories surrounding MH370's disappearance, hijacking emerged as the leading hypothesis. Initial suspicions fell on 2 Iranian passengers who had boarded using counterfeit Austrian passports. However, Interpol's investigation revealed a simpler truth. They were asylum seekers hoping to reach Germany, not hijackers plotting destruction. With no other passengers or cabin crew raising suspicions, investigators turned their focus to the flight deck crew. First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, just 26 years old, was transitioning from the Airbus A330 to the Boeing 777 fleet. MH370 represented his final training flight, a milestone in his budding aviation career. Extensive background checks painted a picture of an ambitious young pilot focused solely on professional growth. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, however, presented a more complex profile. At 52, he brought over 2 decades of flying expertise to the cockpit and held a type rating examiner's certification. His extensive experience would become a critical focal point for investigators. The investigation took a turn when authorities examined Captain Zahari's home, finding a flight simulator with saved paths. One simulation, dated February 2nd, closely matched MH370's presumed route. Interestingly, Captain Zahari piloted MH150 on the same route with identical fuel loads 2 days later. This raised a key question. Was MH150 a potential target? The dual flight crews on the Jeddah route may have complicated diversion plans. MH370, with a single crew and a junior first officer under training, offered a more manageable scenario, as First Officer Farik was less likely to challenge Zahari's decisions. The investigation revealed Captain Zahari's political ties, including his support for opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim, a distant relative. On March 7th, hours before MH370's departure, Ibrahim was sentenced to 5 years in a controversial trial. Some speculate Zahari attended the verdict, fueling political motive rumors. However, it's crucial to maintain perspective. While these circumstances create an intriguing pattern, they remain circumstantial. No concrete evidence definitively supports the theory of Zahari's involvement. These are merely pieces of a puzzle that continues to challenge investigators. So if the plane was hijacked, how was it done? Let's rejoin the plane back in the air just at this point as a crew bids farewell to Malaysian ATC. The plan's success depended on securing control of the flight deck. Captain Zahari would have orchestrated a simple, harmless request like asking for coffee or relaying a message to the cabin crew while First Officer Hamid was under supervision. The exact request didn't matter, only its effectiveness in gaining solitude. The plan succeeded. As First Officer Hamid stepped away, Captain Zahari secured the cockpit door, gaining isolation. A year later, Germanwings Flight 9525 mirrored this scenario, with the co-pilot taking control when the captain stepped out. Both incidents shared a chilling similarity. One pilot behind reinforced doors, controlling countless lives. The Germanwings disaster prompted a critical change in aviation safety protocols, the 2-person cockpit rule. This new mandate required that whenever one pilot exited the flight deck, a cabin crew member must take their place. Had such a safeguard existed during MH370's flight, the entire plan would have crumbled before it began. Securing the cockpit was just the first step. The plane was monitored by both air traffic control via secondary radar and Malaysia Airlines through satellite communications. To disappear, both needed to be bypassed. The Igari waypoint, located in no man's land, provided the perfect opportunity. A simple turn of the transponder from S mode to standby erased the plane from radar across Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand, but Malaysia Airlines' system still posed a challenge. As the Boeing 777's engine spooled up, its SATCOM connected to the satellite network. To avoid suspicion, the perpetrator faced a key challenge: shutting down SATCOM without triggering a log-off signal. They achieved this by disabling the main and backup generators, along with the auxiliary power unit, APU, simulating a system failure and silencing the SATCOM. This power loss silenced the SATCOM, erasing MH370 from tracking systems. The emergency ram air turbine, RAT, provided minimal power, forcing manual flight and causing slight course variations over the Malay Peninsula. Experts speculate cabin depressurization, but no proof exists. Approaching Penang, the aircraft operated far from normal conditions. As MH370 neared Penang, Zahari's hometown, a new challenge arose: evading the Indonesian air defense zone. Using practice maneuvers, he executed a precise right bank, steering the plane on a 310-degree heading toward the near waypoint, skillfully avoiding detection. During the turn at Penang, a cell tower briefly captured a signal from the first officer's iPhone. which vanished quickly. The aircraft then aligned with air route N571, blending with routine military radar traffic. By 2:03 a.m., MH370 was indistinguishable from other flights. As night fell, Malaysia Airlines' efforts to contact MH370 failed, with messages blocked by the disabled SATCOM system. At 2:22 a.m., the aircraft neared the near waypoint, drifting slightly south due to manual flying, marking its final trace on Malaysian military radar. The Nilam waypoint was a pivotal point where any navigation error could jeopardize the plan. The plane navigated a web of military air defense zones, India ahead, with Indonesian and Thai perimeters nearby. Any intrusion risked immediate military response. The escape route required a precise left turn at Nilam to join airway P627 toward Posas, a busy route blending with Australia-bound flights. Executing this maneuver, already challenging under normal conditions, was even harder with the aircraft's minimal operational state. 3 minutes after vanishing from Malaysian radar, power was restored to MH370's main systems. This reactivation enabled autopilot and brought the SATCOM back online, sending a logon message to the Inmarsat network at 2:25 a.m., creating the first arc of satellite data. With autopilot engaged, the aircraft was programmed toward Nilam, but a navigational error caused by earlier southward drift emerged. This led to a corrective left turn toward Posas, marking what investigators called the final major turn as the plane began a critical course adjustment. In this critical phase, the aircraft banked left into the southern reaches, with multiple analyses indicating a heading of 188 degrees. This carefully chosen track served dual purposes: circumnavigating the threatening storm systems while maintaining a safe distance from Sumatra's western coastal radar installations. Meanwhile, tension mounted to fever pitch within Malaysia Airlines' Operations Center. As their aircraft remained stubbornly silent, desperation grew with each failed contact attempt. At 2:40 a.m., they made one final haunting bid for communication via SATCOM. Though the call connected, the cockpit's silence spoke volumes about what lay ahead. The aircraft pressed on southward into the vast Indian Ocean, leaving only digital whispers, hourly handshakes with the satellite that traced its ghostly passage across the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth arcs. For 7.5 hours, these electronic breadcrumbs marked its relentless progress until fuel exhaustion became inevitable. Boeing's engineering team later reconstructed these final moments through careful simulation. As the 777's fuel reserves depleted, the right engine was the first to surrender to the inevitable flameout, initiating what would become the aircraft's final descent. As the plane's engines failed, the autopilot struggled to maintain control before shutting down entirely. The APU briefly powered the SATCOM, sending a final signal, the seventh arc, MH370's last electronic whisper. The aircraft's ultimate fate then hinged on a crucial unknown. Was someone still at the controls? Boeing's simulations painted two distinct scenarios: either a steep, uncontrolled plunge into the ocean, or a controlled glide ending in a shallow angle impact with the waters below. Every simulation placed the crash site within 29 nautical miles of this seventh arc. Yet despite years of exhaustive searches, both government-funded and private, the exact location of MH370 remains tantalizingly out of reach. This Boeing 777 carrying 239 souls has become aviation's most enduring mystery. The only barriers between us and the truth are time, resources, and humanity's unwavering desire to uncover what truly befell flight MH370 on that fateful night.